The steady beep of medical monitors echoed through the pristine corridors of Seattle Grace Private Hospital as Alara Foster clutched her blue notebook closer to her chest. Her soft-soled shoes made barely a whisper against the polished floor as she followed Dr. Richardson, the head of the intensive care unit, toward what would become her new workplace for the foreseeable future. Room 742, Dr. Richardson announced, pausing before a heavy wooden door. Your new patient. He flipped through his tablet, his expression carefully neutral. I must say, Ms. Foster, it's unusual for someone of your, experience level to be assigned to such a high-profile case. Alara fought the urge to bite her lower lip, a nervous habit she'd never quite outgrown. I understand, Doctor, but I assure you my approach to clinical nutrition goes beyond just following protocols. The doctor's eyebrows lifted slightly, but he said nothing as he pushed open the door. The room that greeted them was more like a luxury hotel suite than a hospital room, with large windows overlooking Seattle's skyline and expensive furnishings that spoke of privilege and power. But Alara's attention immediately fixed on the still figure in the bed. Tristan Merrick lay motionless, his strong frame somehow both commanding and vulnerable beneath the crisp hospital sheets. His chestnut hair, usually styled to perfection in magazine photos, fell softly across his forehead. Even in a coma, there was something magnetic about his presence. Mr. Merrick has been in this state for 3 weeks now, Dr. Richardson explained, checking the monitors. The accident? Car crash on Interstate 5, Alara finished quietly. Everyone in Seattle knew about it. The CEO of Merrick Tech, one of the city's biggest employers, involved in a mysterious late-night accident. The media had been in a frenzy. Indeed. The doctor handed her a tablet. Here's his complete file. All dietary requirements, restrictions, and current feeding protocols are included. The previous nutritionist left rather abruptly. Alara's fingers traced the edge of her notebook where she kept her special recipes and notes. May I ask why? Let's just say the pressure of handling such a high-profile patient wasn't for everyone. He checked his watch. The nursing staff will assist with basic care. Your job is strictly nutritional management. After the doctor left, Alara stood in the quiet room, taking in every detail. The expensive Bleu de Chanel cologne still lingered in the air, mixing with the sterile hospital scent. A sleek laptop sat unopened on a side table, next to a stack of business magazines with Tristan's face on their covers. Moving closer to the bed, she began her usual assessment routine, but as she gently lifted his arm to check for muscle tone, something caught her eye. There, just visible beneath the sleeve of his hospital gown, was an unusual mark on his skin. Alara's heart skipped a beat. After years of clinical practice, she recognized it immediately. Not a common pressure sore, but something far more serious. She carefully replaced his arm and pulled out her phone, searching through medical databases. The mark matched perfectly with the early stages of Hawthorne's disease, an extremely rare terminal condition. Her hands trembled as she double-checked. His medical file, not a single mention of it. How had everyone missed this, or had they? Taking a deep breath, she walked to the window, watching as Seattle's perpetual rain painted patterns on the glass. The weight of this discovery settled heavily on her shoulders. As a healthcare professional, she had an ethical obligation to report it. But something in her gut told her to wait, to understand more before potentially causing chaos in this already complicated situation. Returning to Tristan's bedside, she pulled up a chair and opened her blue notebook. Mr. Merrick, she said softly, her voice gentle in the quiet room. I'm Alara Foster, your new nutritionist. I know you probably can't hear me, but I believe in proper introductions. She began writing in her notebook, creating a specialized meal plan that would not only meet his nutritional needs but also potentially help with the symptoms she suspected he was facing. I think we should start with anti-inflammatory foods, she murmured, more to herself than to him. And definitely, increase your antioxidant intake. A light knock interrupted her thoughts. Clara Jones, her best friend and one of the night nurses, poked her head in, her vibrant red curls bouncing. Girl, you're still here? Shift ended 10 minutes ago. Alara looked up, surprised to see that evening had fallen. Just finishing up. Some notes. Clara entered the room, her colorful scrubs brightening the austere space. "First day with the famous Mr. Merrick, huh? How's our sleeping beauty?" Alara glanced at Tristan's peaceful face, thinking of the secret she'd discovered. "He's stable. I'm just working on optimizing his nutrition plan." Clara smiled knowingly. "Already going above and beyond, aren't you? That's my girl." She adjusted one of the many pins on her scrubs, this one reading, "Nurses. We can't fix stupid, but we can sedate it." "Someone has to," Ilara replied softly, gathering her things. As she stood to leave, she paused by Tristan's bedside one last time. "Good night, Mr. Merrick," she whispered. "I'll see you tomorrow." Walking out into the rainy Seattle evening, Ilara pulled her cardigan closer. The sweet scent of her Daisy Love perfume mingled with the fresh air, reminding her of happier times with her mother. She thought about the man she'd left behind in that quiet room, powerful, vulnerable, and harboring a secret that could change everything. Tomorrow she would begin her real work, not just feeding a patient, but perhaps helping to save a life. For now, though, she had research to do. Pulling out her phone, she began searching for everything she could find about Hawthorne's disease, her mind already racing with possibilities. As she waited for her bus, the last light of day fading from the sky, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken an unexpected turn. In that quiet hospital room, something had shifted, something that went beyond professional duty or medical ethics. She just didn't know yet how profound that shift would be. Dawn crept through Seattle's perpetual cloud cover as Ilara arrived at the hospital, earlier than required for her shift. Her laptop bag was heavier than usual, loaded with research papers on Hawthorne's disease that she'd spent half the night studying. Dark circles shadowed her green eyes, but determination fueled her steps. The hospital corridors were quiet, caught in that peaceful lull between night and morning shifts. As she approached room 742, she heard unexpected movement inside. Pushing the door open, she found two nursing assistants struggling to change Tristan's hospital gown, their movements rushed and impersonal. "Stop," Ilara said firmly, setting down her bags. "I'll handle this." The assistants exchanged glances. "This isn't really your job, Ms. Foster," one of them said. "Maybe not," she replied, already pulling on medical gloves. "But it's about dignity, isn't it? Please give us some privacy." Once alone with Tristan, Ilara took a deep breath. "Good morning, Mr. Merrick. I hope you don't mind, but I'd rather do this myself. Everyone deserves to be treated with care, especially when they're vulnerable." She worked methodically, gentle yet efficient. As she carefully lifted his arm to change the gown, she examined the mark she'd discovered yesterday. In the morning light, it looked slightly darker. Her heart tightened, another classic symptom of progression. "You know," she said softly, securing the fresh gown, "my mother always said that healing starts with small dignities. She was right about a lot of things." Ilara's voice caught slightly. "She would have loved the view from your room, the way the sunrise turns the clouds, pink over the sound." A subtle change in the heart monitor's rhythm made her pause. Was it just her imagination, or had his pulse quickened slightly at the sound of her voice? Pulling her blue notebook from her bag, Ilara settled into the chair beside his bed. "I've been thinking about your nutrition plan. Did you know blueberries have one of the highest antioxidant levels of any fruit? I'm thinking smoothies, organic blueberries, spinach, a touch of ginger." She sketched out the recipe, adding little notes in the margins. The door opened and Clara breezed in, finishing her night shift. "Girl, you're here already? I should have known." She checked Tristan's vitals, then frowned at the monitors. "That's interesting." "What is?" "His readings are better than usual. Blood pressure's perfect, oxygen levels up." Clara adjusted her name tag, decorated with tiny star stickers. "Whatever you're doing, keep it up." After Clara left, Ilara pulled out her laptop and opened her research files. "Hope you don't mind if I work here while I plan your meals," she told Tristan. "I found some fascinating studies about nutritional approaches to inflammatory conditions, and there's this doctor in Boston who's doing revolutionary work with rare metabolic disorders." She worked steadily through the morning, alternating between research and updating his meal plans. Sometimes she'd read interesting passages aloud to him, or share thoughts about different treatment approaches. The rain outside created a soothing backdrop to her quiet monologue. Around noon, Dr. Richardson arrived for his rounds. He raised an eyebrow at the sight of Alara's impromptu office setup. "Ms. Foster, I wasn't expecting to find you here. I've been working on a comprehensive nutritional strategy," she explained, pulling up her charts. "I've noticed some concerning inflammatory markers in his latest blood work, so I'm adjusting his protein and micronutrient intake accordingly." The doctor reviewed her plans with mounting interest. "This is unusually thorough, though I question the necessity of such an aggressive anti-inflammatory approach." Ilara's heart raced. This was her chance. "Doctor, have you considered the possibility of an underlying metabolic condition? Something that might explain the inflammation patterns?" "We've run every standard test," he replied dismissively. "Mr. Merrick's condition is solely the result of his accident." She bit her lip, weighing her next words carefully. But before she could speak, a commotion erupted in the hallway. Through the door burst a tall, impeccably dressed man in his early 40s, radiating corporate authority. "Dr. Richardson," he announced, "the board has some concerns about Mr. Merrick's care plan." The doctor straightened immediately. "Mr. Bradford, I wasn't expecting you. As Merrick Tech's legal counsel, we need to speak privately." Bradford's sharp eyes landed on Ilara. "Who is this?" "Ilara Foster, Mr. Merrick's nutritionist," she answered, standing her ground despite his intimidating presence. Bradford's expression flickered with something unreadable. "The new one." "Yes. I trust you understand the confidentiality requirements of this position?" "Of course." "Good." He turned back to Dr. Richardson. "Your office. Now." After they left, Ilara sank back into her chair, mind racing. The tension in that brief exchange had been palpable. Bradford's reaction to her presence, the doctor's sudden deference. Something wasn't adding up. She looked at Tristan's peaceful face, wondering what secrets lay behind his closed eyes. "What aren't they telling me?" she whispered. "And more importantly, what aren't they telling you?" The afternoon passed slowly. Ilara focused on implementing her new nutrition plan, personally supervising the preparation of Tristan's meals in the hospital kitchen. She'd insisted on organic ingredients, much to the staff's annoyance, but she wouldn't compromise. As evening approached, she caught herself humming softly, an old Iron and Wine song her mother used to love, the same one that had been playing in her car the night she got the call about her mom's hospital error. "Music helps healing," she told Tristan's silent form. "And you seem like someone who appreciates the quieter things. I saw your vinyl collection in those magazine features about your home. Very impressive jazz library." She was gathering her things to leave when Clara appeared for her night shift. "Still here? You're going to spoil all the other patients with this level of dedication." Ilara managed a tired smile. "Just doing my job." "Honey, I saw Bradford earlier. That man gives me the creeps." Clara adjusted her bright scrubs. "Want to grab coffee? You look like you could use someone to talk to." "I can't." Ilara gestured to her laptop. "More research to do." Clara's expression softened with concern. "Don't lose yourself in this case, okay? I know that look in your eyes. You're on a mission. Just be careful." After Clara left, Ilara stood by Tristan's bedside. "One last time. I'll figure this out," she promised quietly. "Whatever they're hiding, whatever's really wrong, I won't let you face it alone." On impulse, she touched his hand. Just briefly, a gesture of reassurance. His skin was warm, alive, and for a moment, just a moment, she could have sworn his fingers twitched against hers. Driving home through the rainy night, Ilara's mind whirled with questions. The mark on his skin, Bradford's suspicious behavior, the doctor's dismissal of her concerns. She needed answers. More than that, she needed allies. Tomorrow, she decided, she would start making calls. That doctor in Boston, Maybe he'd be willing to consult, to look at Tristan's case. It was a risk reaching outside official channels, but something deep in her gut told her time was running out. The sweet scent of her Daisy Love perfume still lingered in her car, mingling with the earthy smell of rain. It reminded her of other rainy nights, other hospital vigils. But this time was different. This time, she wasn't helpless. This time, she would fight. The earliest rays of morning sunlight filtered through Seattle's persistent fog as Alara balanced a tray of freshly prepared breakfast smoothie. Today's blend, organic blueberries, spinach, and a carefully measured combination of supplements she'd specially ordered. The kitchen staff had finally stopped questioning her exacting specifications, though she still insisted on preparing Tristan's meals herself. 3 weeks had passed since she'd discovered the telltale mark of Hawthorne's disease. 3 weeks of careful observation, detailed notes, and growing concern as she noticed subtle changes in his condition. The mark had spread slightly, though she seemed to be the only one who saw it. As she approached room 742, she heard voices inside, heated ones. She paused, listening. "The board is getting impatient," Bradford's distinctive voice carried through the door. "We need to consider more aggressive options." "The risks would be considerable," Dr. Richardson responded. "In his current state is precisely the problem. Merrick Tech's stock has dropped 15% since the accident. We need him back." Alara's hands tightened on the tray, the way they discussed him, like he was just an asset to be managed. She pushed the door open, deliberately letting it make noise. Both men turned sharply. Bradford's eyes narrowed at her intrusion. "Ms. Foster, don't you believe in knocking?" "Mealtime is scheduled for 7 a.m., she replied evenly. "I'm simply maintaining Mr. Merrick's routine." She moved to Tristan's bedside, setting up the feeding equipment with practiced care. Consistency is crucial for coma patients. Dr. Richardson cleared his throat. "We'll continue this discussion later." He hurried out, Bradford following after one last suspicious glance at Alara. Once they were gone, Alara let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "I wish you could tell me what's really going on," she murmured to Tristan as she adjusted his feeding tube. "Why do I get the feeling there's so much more to your story?" She began her morning routine, checking his vital signs and skin condition. The mark had darkened slightly overnight, another warning sign. Her research into Hawthorne's disease suggested the progression was accelerating. "I made some calls yesterday," she told him, keeping her voice low. "That specialist in Boston, Dr. Kavanaugh, he agreed to review your case, unofficially, of course." She gently massaged his arms and hands as she spoke, maintaining muscle tone. "He's brilliant, actually. His work on metabolic disorders is groundbreaking." A slight change in his breathing made her pause. These small responses had been happening more frequently lately, subtle shifts in vital signs when she spoke or touched him. The rational part of her mind said it was probably coincidence, but her instincts suggested otherwise. "I have something for you," she continued, pulling her blue notebook from her bag. "I've been thinking about your condition, trying to approach it from different angles. Remember that article I read you yesterday about cellular regeneration? Well, I couldn't sleep last night, so I started developing a comprehensive treatment plan." She read her notes aloud, explaining her theories about combining nutritional therapy with emerging treatments. As she spoke, her fingers absently traced patterns on the edge of his bed, not quite touching him but close enough to feel the warmth of his skin. The door opened again, and Clara breezed in, finishing her night shift. Today's scrubs featured tiny dancing penguins, and her curls were tied up with a glittering scrunchie. "Morning, sunshine, and I mean both of you." She winked at Alara. "How's our favorite patient?" "His vitals are stronger today," Alara reported, trying to sound professional despite the warmth in her cheeks. Clara checked the monitors, then gave a low whistle. "You're not kidding. Blood pressure's perfect. Brain activity is up." She studied Alara with knowing eyes. "You're working magic in here, girl." "It's just good nutrition," Alara demurred. "Mm-hmm." Clara's smile was knowing. That's why you spend every free minute in here talking to him about jazz and reading him medical journals. Ilara faltered. Had she been that obvious? Honey, I've been a nurse for years. I know dedication when I see it. Clara adjusted one of Tristan's IV lines. And I know something else too. Coma patients can hear more than we think. They understand. They feel. Ilara's heart skipped. Have you noticed the way his readings change when you're here? Child, please. I've been charting those patterns for weeks. Clara's expression grew serious. But be careful, okay? Bradford's been asking questions about you. A chill ran down Ilara's spine. What kind of questions? Background checks, employment, history, why you left your last job. Clara squeezed her arm. Watch your back. After Clara left, Ilara sat in her usual chair, mind racing. She'd known her investigation into Tristan's condition might attract attention, but actual background checks? What was Bradford afraid she might discover? She looked at Tristan's face, peaceful in repose. In the soft morning light, she could see the faint lines around his eyes, laugh lines suggesting that despite his stern public image, he knew joy once. I won't let them rush your recovery, she promised softly. Whatever they're planning, I'll find a way to protect you. The morning passed in a blur of routine tasks and careful observations. Ilara documented everything meticulously, building evidence to support her theories about his condition. Around noon, she received an encrypted email from Dr. Kavanaugh in Boston, requesting more details about the case. She was composing her response when she heard it, a sound so faint she almost missed it. A change in Tristan's breathing, followed by the slightest movement of his fingers. Ilara froze, watching intently. There, another twitch, this time accompanied by a subtle change in his facial expression. Her heart pounding, she quickly checked his vital signs. Everything was elevated slightly, suggesting increased brain activity. Tristan? She whispered, using his first name for the first time. Can you hear me? The monitors showed another spike in response to her voice. Hardly daring to breathe, she took his hand gently in hers. If you can understand me, try to squeeze my fingers, just a little. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, so faintly she might have imagined it, she felt the slightest pressure against her palm. Tears sprang to her eyes. You're still in there, she breathed. I knew it. I knew you were fighting. She should call Dr. Richardson, report this development. It was the proper protocol, but something held her back. The memory of that earlier conversation with Bradford, the talk of aggressive options. No, this moment was too precious, too fragile to risk. Instead, she held his hand and began to speak softly about her plans for his recovery, about the specialist in Boston, about her theories regarding his condition. She poured out everything she'd been holding back, all her hopes and fears and determinations. And though he made no other movement, his hand remained warm in hers, his pulse strong and steady under her fingers. The rest of the day passed in a heightened state of awareness. Ilara watched for any further signs of consciousness, documenting everything in her private notes rather than the official chart. She knew she was walking a dangerous line, but instinct told her that Tristan's best chance lay in keeping his progress quiet until she better understood the forces at work around him. As evening fell, she reluctantly prepared to leave. I'll be back first thing tomorrow, she promised, gathering her things. Keep fighting, okay? I'm right here with you. On impulse, she leaned down and whispered near his ear. You're not alone anymore. Driving home through the rain-slicked streets, the sweet scent of her perfume mixing with the earthy petrichor from her open window, Ilara felt something unfamiliar blooming in her chest. Something that went beyond professional dedication or medical fascination. It felt like hope. It felt like possibility. It felt, she realized with a mix of terror and exhilaration, like the beginning of falling in love. And somewhere in a quiet hospital room, monitored by machines that recorded every change, A man trapped in silence held onto the memory of a warm hand in his, fighting his way back toward the sound of her voice. The Seattle rain fell in gentle sheets against the hospital windows as Ilara hurried through her morning routine, her mind still racing from the encrypted email she'd received from Dr. Kavanagh at dawn. His preliminary analysis of Tristan's case had confirmed her worst fears about the Hawthorne's disease progression, but he'd also mentioned an experimental treatment protocol that showed promise. "Morning, Mr. Merrick," she said softly, entering room 742 with today's carefully prepared breakfast smoothie. "How are you feeling, Todd?" She stopped short. The room was different. Medical equipment had been moved, and new monitors crowded the bedside. Dr. Richardson stood at the foot of the bed reviewing data on a tablet. "Ms. Foster," he said, not looking up. "Schedule change. We're beginning a new treatment regimen today." Ilara's heart rate spiked. "What kind of treatment?" "Experimental neurostimulation. The board has approved." Without consulting his nutritional team, Ilara interrupted, setting down the smoothie with more force than necessary. "This could interact with his metabolic—" "Ms. Foster," Dr. Richardson's tone was sharp. "You are here to manage his dietary needs, nothing more. The decision has been made." Before she could argue further, Bradford swept into the room, followed by two doctors she didn't recognize. They wore badges from a private research facility. "Everything ready?" Bradford asked, ignoring Ilara completely. "We can begin within the hour," one of the new doctors replied, already reaching for Tristan's IV line. "Stop." Ilara's voice cut through the room like steel. Everyone turned to stare at her. "His latest blood work shows elevated inflammation markers. Starting any aggressive treatment now could—" "Ms. Foster," Bradford interrupted, his voice dangerously quiet. "A word outside now." In the hallway, Bradford closed the door and fixed her with an icy stare. "You seem to have forgotten your place in this facility." "My place is advocating for my patient's well-being," she replied, matching his tone, "and everything about this feels wrong." "Wrong?" His laugh was cold. "What's wrong is watching Merrick Tech's stock price plummet while its CEO lies here unresponsive. What's wrong is losing millions in market value every day we wait. He's a human being, not a stock price." "He's both." Bradford stepped closer, lowering his voice. "And you're dangerously close to overstepping. I've read your file, Ms. Foster. The incident at your last hospital in Portland, the questions you raised about patient care. One more complaint about protocol and your medical career will be over. Permanently." Ilara's hands trembled, but she held his gaze. "Are you threatening me?" "Consider it friendly advice." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and those private notes you've been keeping? The ones about certain symptoms you think you've observed? I suggest you destroy them, for your own good." Ilara stood frozen in the hallway long after he'd gone, her mind whirling. They knew about her notes, about her suspicions regarding Tristan's condition. But how much did they know about her contact with Dr. Kavanagh? Through the door's window, she could see the doctors preparing their equipment. Her heart ached, watching them treat Tristan like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be healed. A warm hand touched her shoulder, making her jump. It was Clara, arriving for her shift change. "Girl, you look like you've seen a ghost." Clara's eyes narrowed, taking in Ilara's expression. "What did that snake Bradford say to you?" Ilara pulled her friend into an empty consultation room and told her everything. The threats, the experimental treatment, her fears about what it might do to Tristan in his current condition. "Those bastards," Clara muttered when she finished. "But honey, if they're threatening your license—" "I can't leave him." The words came out before Ilara could stop them, raw with emotion. "Clara, he's responding. Little things. Finger movements, changes in breathing when I talk to him. He's fighting to come back." Clara studied her face for a long moment. "You're falling for him, aren't you?" Ilara closed her eyes. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who knows you." Clara squeezed her hand. And I'm guessing that's why you can't walk away even with Bradford breathing down your neck. What do I do? You fight smart. Clara's eyes gleamed. Look, I've got contacts in the hospital board. People who owe me favors. Let me do some digging about this experimental treatment. Meanwhile, you need to protect yourself. Back up those notes somewhere safe. Ilara hugged her friend fiercely. What would I do without you? Crash and burn, honey. Now go. Your patient needs you. Back in Tristan's room, the doctors were still setting up their equipment. Ilara resumed her normal routine, hyper-aware of their watching eyes as she checked Tristan's vital signs and adjusted his feeding tube. I'm still here, she whispered, when the others were distracted with their preparations. I'm not going anywhere. She could have sworn she felt his pulse quicken under her fingers. The morning dragged on tensely. Ilara documented everything meticulously in the official charts while keeping separate notes on her phone, encrypted and backed up to a secure cloud service. She watched the doctors calibrate their equipment with growing unease. Just before noon, as they prepared for the first neurostimulation session, all hell broke loose. The monitors suddenly erupted in a cascade of alarms. Tristan's body jerked, his back arching slightly off the bed. His fingers, the ones that had squeezed hers so faintly days before, clenched into fists. Blood pressure spiking. Heart rate critical. Get Richardson in here. Ilara pushed through the chaos to Tristan's side, her hand steady as she checked his pupils. They were reactive, more responsive than she'd ever seen them. Stop, she commanded, authority ringing in her voice. Everyone stop, look at his eyes. The room fell silent except for the beeping monitors. Dr. Richardson rushed in, took one look at the situation and barked, "Clear the room, now." As the others filed out, Ilara stood her ground. I'm staying. Richardson opened his mouth to argue, then stopped as Tristan's fingers twitched again, more purposefully this time. Mr. Merrick? The doctor called. Can you hear me? No response, but when Ilara leaned close and softly said, Tristan? His eyelids fluttered. Talk to him, Richardson ordered, watching the monitors intently. Ilara took Tristan's hand, no longer caring who saw. Hey, she said gently. I know you're scared, but you're safe. I'm right here. Just focus on my voice. His fingers tightened around hers, weak but deliberate. And then, slowly, impossibly, his eyes opened. Brilliant blue met sea green as their gazes locked. Confusion clouded his expression, then fear, then something else, recognition. His lips moved, trying to form words around the breathing tube. Don't try to talk, Ilara soothed, even as her own heart thundered. You're in the hospital. You've been in a coma for several weeks. Just squeeze my hand if you understand. A squeeze, stronger than before. Paige Bradford, Richardson snapped to a nurse. And get that damned experimental equipment out of here. The next hours passed in a blur of tests, procedures, and careful monitoring as Tristan gradually became more aware. They removed his breathing tube, replaced it with an oxygen mask. His voice wouldn't work yet, but his eyes tracked every movement, especially Ilara's. Bradford arrived, his face a mask of corporate concern, but Tristan's heart rate elevated dangerously when he approached. After several attempts to communicate with his CEO, the doctors insisted Bradford leave to keep the patient stable. Through it all, Ilara stayed, her hand never far from Tristan's. She explained each procedure calmly, interpreted medical jargon, kept him grounded when the confusion and fear threatened to overwhelm him. As evening fell and his vital signs finally stabilized, she reluctantly prepared to leave. You should rest, she told him softly. I'll be back first thing tomorrow. His fingers caught her wrist, weak but insistent. His eyes held hers, trying to convey something urgent. What is it? She asked, leaning closer. He drew a shaky breath behind the oxygen mask and whispered two words that changed everything. You know. Ilara's heart stopped. In those two raspy syllables lay confirmation of every suspicion, every fear. He knew she'd discovered his secret. And now, finally awake, he needed her more than ever. "Yes," she whispered back. "I know. And I promise, we'll figure this out together." His eyes drifted closed, exhaustion winning out, but his fingers remained curled around her wrist, holding on, trusting, choosing her as his ally in whatever battles lay ahead. Standing in the parking lot later, breathing in the rain-cleaned air, Ilara felt the weight of that trust settle around her shoulders. She had chosen this path, chosen him, despite the risks. Despite Bradford's threats, despite the professional danger, despite the confused feelings growing in her heart. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Questions would have to be answered, decisions made. But for now, she held on to the memory of those blue eyes opening, of that whispered acknowledgement, of the way his hand had held hers like an anchor in a storm. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Morning light streamed through the windows of room 742, casting a warm glow over the changed atmosphere. The breathing tube was gone, replaced by a nasal cannula, and Tristan Merrick sat propped up against his pillows, his blue eyes alert despite the exhaustion evident in his face. Ilara paused in the doorway, her heart skipping at the sight of him awake and aware. She'd spent half the night updating Dr. Kavanagh about the development, and the other half wondering how everything would change now that they could actually speak to each other. "Good morning," she said softly, entering with her usual breakfast preparations. "How are you feeling?" Tristan's voice was rough from disuse, barely above a whisper. "Like I've been hit by a truck." His attempt at humor was undermined by a grimace of pain. "Close. Sports car, actually." Ilara moved to check his vital signs, hyper-aware of his gaze following her movements. "Your throat will be sore for a while. I made you something that should help. Ginger and honey tea, room temperature." She helped him take small sips, trying to ignore how intimate it felt to be this close to him now that he was conscious. His cologne had faded during his weeks in the hospital, replaced by the subtle scent of the high-end toiletries his staff provided, but something distinctly him remained, a warmth that made her pulse quicken. "You're her," he said after a moment. "The voice, the one who kept talking to me." Ilara busied herself adjusting his IV line. "You could hear me? Not everything, but your voice, it was like..." He paused, searching for words. "Like a light in the dark, leading me back." Their eyes met, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. Before she could respond, the door opened and Dr. Richardson entered with his morning rounds team. "Mr. Merrick, good to see you alert," the doctor said, picking up his chart. "We have quite a few tests scheduled today. How's the pain level?" "Manageable." Tristan's voice was clipped, professional, so different from how he'd spoken to her moments ago. "Good, good. Now, about your recovery plan." "Actually," Tristan interrupted, "I'd like to speak with Ms. Foster alone first. About my nutritional program." Richardson frowned. "Mr. Merrick, there are more pressing..." It wasn't a request. Even weakened, Tristan's authority was unmistakable. 10 minutes, after the medical team filed out, an awkward silence fell. Ilara could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. "How long have you known?" Tristan finally asked, his voice low. "About the Hawthorne's disease. Since my first day." She met his eyes steadily. "I saw the mark while checking your skin condition." He nodded slowly. "And you didn't report it?" "I suspected there was a reason it wasn't in your chart." She moved closer to his bed. "The question is, why wasn't it? How long have you known?" Tristan's fingers twisted in the sheets, a gesture of vulnerability that seemed at odds with his powerful presence. 6 months before the accident, my private physician discovered it during a routine checkup." "And you kept it secret?" "Had to. If word got out that Merrick Tech's CEO had a terminal illness..." He closed his eyes briefly. "The company would tank. Thousands would lose their jobs. Everything I've built would collapse. So the accident wasn't one." His voice was barely audible. "I was struggling with the diagnosis, made some reckless decisions. The crash wasn't intentional, but I wasn't exactly trying to avoid it either. Ilara's heart ached at the pain in his admission. Without thinking, she reached for his hand. His fingers interlaced with hers immediately, holding on like she was an anchor in a storm. "I've been researching treatments," she told him. "There's a specialist in Boston, Dr. Kavanagh. He's developing new protocols that show promise. Bradford will never allow outside consultation. He's already suspicious." "Of you," Tristan's grip tightened. "I heard him threatening you yesterday. Your career, your license. Let me worry about Bradford." "No." His voice strengthened with emotion. "I won't let you risk everything for me. You don't even know me." "Don't I?" Ilara sat on the edge of his bed, still holding his hand. "I know you prefer jazz to classical, but you'll listen to anything with a good saxophone solo. I know you take your coffee black, but secretly love sweet things. Your blood sugar spikes whenever the nurses sneak you candy. I know you respond to kindness and genuine connection, even in a coma, but your heart rate elevates when people are fake with you." She took a breath, then continued softly. "I know you're brilliant and driven, but also lonely. I know you're scared not of dying but of leaving things unfinished, unresolved. I know you're used to handling everything alone, but right now you need someone in your corner, and I know that person needs to be me." Tristan stared at her, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. "Why?" "Because Ilara broke off as the door opened again. Clara burst in, her curls wild and her scrubs wrinkled. "Girl, we've got trouble. Bradford's called an emergency board meeting. They're talking about transferring Mr. Merrick to a private facility." "When?" Ilara demanded, standing but not releasing Tristan's hand. "Tomorrow morning. They're sending a medical transport team." Clara's eyes darted between them. "Once he's moved, none of us will have access. No way to monitor his treatment, no way to prevent them from trying that experimental protocol again." "They can't do that," Ilara protested. "It's not safe. In his condition." "Actually, they can." Tristan's voice was grim. "Bradford has my medical power of attorney, a precaution in case something happened." He laughed bitterly. "Guess I didn't expect him to use it against me." Ilara's mind raced. "Dr. Kavanagh, if we can get him here before the transfer—" "He'd need privileges at this hospital," Clara interrupted. "The paperwork alone would take days." "Unless," Ilara said slowly, "he was called in for an emergency consultation by the patient himself." She turned to Tristan. "You're awake now. You can revoke Bradford's power of attorney. Make your own decisions." Hope flickered in Tristan's eyes, quickly replaced by concern. "Bradford will retaliate. Your career—" "Stop." Ilara squeezed his hand. "My career means nothing compared to your life. Let me help you. Please." The moment stretched between them, charged with everything still unsaid. Finally, Tristan nodded. "Make the call." And Clara was already pulling out her phone. "I'll handle the hospital paperwork. Got some friends in administration who owe me favors. I'll contact Kavanagh." Ilara reluctantly released Tristan's hand. "He can be here by tonight if he takes the last flight out." "Wait." Tristan caught her wrist as she turned to leave. "Earlier you were going to say something. Why you need to be the one to help me, why you care so much." Ilara's heart thundered in her chest. In his eyes, she saw the same confusion of feelings that had been growing in her own heart. Trust, connection, and something deeper, something neither of them was ready to name. "Because," she said softly, "some things are worth fighting for." The look they shared said everything their words couldn't yet express. Then Ilara squared her shoulders and headed for the door, Clara right behind her. They had work to do, a battle to fight, a life to save. But the warmth of Tristan's touch lingered on her skin, and the memory of his vulnerable trust gave her strength. Whatever came next, they would face it together. In the hallway, Clara caught her arm. "Girl, I've never seen you like this. Are you sure about this fight?" Ilara thought of Tristan's fingers interlaced with hers, of the way he'd said, her voice was his light in the darkness of all the quiet moments that had led them here. Some battles choose you, she replied simply, already pulling out her phone to call Dr. Kavanagh. And this one? It was always mine to fight. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across room 742 as Ilara paced, her phone pressed to her ear. Yes, Dr. Kavanagh, I understand the risks, but if we don't act now... She glanced at Tristan, who was watching her intently from his bed. We might not get another chance. The renowned specialist's voice crackled through the speaker. I can catch the 7 p.m. flight from Boston. But Ilara, you need to understand. If Bradford is as powerful as you say, this could have serious repercussions. I know, just please hurry. After ending the call, Ilara sank into her usual chair beside Tristan's bed. The events of the morning had left them both exhausted, but there was no time to rest. Clara was downstairs working her connections to expedite the hospital privileges paperwork. Every minute counted. You look tired, Tristan observed, his voice stronger now but still rough around the edges. Says the man who just woke up from a coma, she replied with a small smile. Come here. He patted the edge of his bed, and after a moment's hesitation, she moved to sit beside him. Tell me about my condition, everything you've learned. Ilara pulled out her blue notebook, its pages now filled with weeks of research. Hawthorne's disease is incredibly rare, only about 50 documented cases worldwide. It attacks the body's metabolic systems, causing progressive organ failure. Without treatment, she swallowed hard. 6 months to a year, typically. And, with treatment, Dr. Kavanagh's protocol shows promise. It combines specialized nutrition therapy with targeted molecular treatments. He's had success extending life expectancy significantly, and in 2 cases, she met his eyes. Complete remission. Hope flickered across Tristan's face, quickly masked by his usual controlled expression. What are the odds? Does it matter? Ilara challenged. You're a businessman. You've taken bigger risks with lower odds of success. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. True, but those risks only affected me. He reached for her hand, his touch sending electricity through her skin. I don't want you sacrificing your career for a lost cause. You're not a lost cause. The conviction in her voice surprised them both. You're a fighter. I saw it every day while you were unconscious. The way you responded to treatment, how you fought your way back. Their eyes locked, and the air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken emotions. Tristan's thumb traced small circles on her palm, each touch sending shivers up her arm. The moment was broken by a sharp knock. They quickly separated as Clara burst in, waving a stack of papers triumphantly. Got it. Emergency privileges for Dr. Kavanagh, fast-tracked through administration. She paused, taking in their flushed faces and careful distance. Did I interrupt something? No, they said in unison, then shared a quick glance that made Clara roll her eyes. Sure, whatever you say. But we've got bigger problems. Bradford's on his way up and he looks pissed. As if on cue, angry voices echoed from the hallway. Ilara quickly slipped her notebook into her bag just as Bradford stormed in, followed by 2 men in expensive suits. What is this I hear about unauthorized consultations? Bradford demanded, waving a paper. A specialist from Boston? Absolutely not. The transfer is happening first thing tomorrow. Actually, Tristan's voice cut through the room like steel. It's not. Bradford turned, seeming to notice his conscious state for the first time. Tristan, good to see you awake. Now about your care plan. You're fired. The words fell like bombs in the suddenly silent room. Bradford's face went pale, then red. You can't. I can, and I am. As of this moment, you're no longer my attorney, medical or otherwise. Tristan's voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. Clara, would you please call security? Mr. Bradford seems to have forgotten he no longer has privileges to be in this room. My pleasure. Clara said with barely concealed glee, reaching for the call button. "You're making a mistake," Bradford hissed. "The board won't stand for—" "The board serves at my pleasure," Tristan reminded him. "And I think they'll be very interested in hearing about your unauthorized experimental treatments. Not to mention your attempts to interfere with my medical care against my expressed wishes." Two security guards appeared in the doorway. Bradford straightened his tie, struggling to maintain his dignity. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is." "Oh, and Bradford?" Tristan's eyes were cold. "If anything happens to Ms. Foster's medical license or career, the full weight of Merrick Tech's legal department will make it their personal mission to destroy you. Clear?" After Bradford and his associates were escorted out, the tension in the room slowly dissipated. Clara whooped and gave Alara a high five before heading off to finish her rounds, leaving them alone again. "That was impressive," Alara said, trying to hide how affected she was by his defense of her. "Hardly. I should have done it weeks ago if I'd been conscious." Tristan shifted, wincing slightly. "Though I have to admit being in a coma had its advantages. The company ran itself, and I had a beautiful woman reading me medical journals." Alara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You remember that?" "Not everything, but your voice. It was like an anchor, keeping me connected to the world." His expression grew serious. "You saw me, the real me, not the CEO or the company asset, even before I could see you back." The weight of his words hung in the air between them. Alara busied herself checking his vital signs, needing something to do with her trembling hands. "Your heart rate's elevated," she murmured. "I wonder why," he replied softly, catching her wrist as she tried to pull away. "Alara." The sound of her name on his lips made her breath catch. She looked up, meeting his intense blue gaze, and the world seemed to narrow to just this moment. Just them. A discreet cough from the doorway made them jump apart. Dr. Richardson stood there looking uncomfortable. "Ms. Foster, Dr. Kavanaugh's office is on the line. They need the latest test results for his review." "Right. Of course." Alara gathered her professional composure around her like a shield. "I'll handle that now." As she walked to the door, Tristan called after her. "Alara, thank you for everything." She turned back, allowing herself one last look at him. In the late afternoon light, his blue eyes seemed to hold all the questions and possibilities swirling in her own heart. "Get some rest," she said softly. "Tomorrow's going to be a big day." In the hallway, she leaned against the wall for a moment, trying to steady her racing heart. What was she doing? Falling for a patient, a terminally ill patient no less, was beyond unprofessional. It was potentially devastating. But as she walked to the nurse's station to coordinate with Dr. Kavanaugh's office, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Tristan had looked at her, the feeling of his hand on hers, the quiet strength in his voice when he'd defended her. Sometimes the heart knows what it wants before the mind can catch up, and her heart, it seemed, had already chosen its path. Now she just had to make sure they had enough time for whatever was growing between them to bloom. Seattle's evening rain painted blurred patterns on the windows of room 742 as Alara reviewed the latest batch of test results with trembling hands. Dr. Kavanaugh's flight would land in an hour, and every piece of data needed to be perfect. The progression of Tristan's Hawthorne's disease was accelerating faster than she'd feared. "Your heart rate keeps spiking when you read those reports," Tristan observed from his bed. His voice was stronger now, though fatigue still shadowed his eyes. "That bad?" Alara looked up, caught off guard by his perceptiveness. Of course he'd notice. He'd been watching her all evening with those intense blue eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully maintained professional facade. "Just worried about being thorough for Dr. Kavanaugh." She deflected, but Tristan wasn't buying it. "Come here." He patted the edge of his bed, their shared gesture that was quickly becoming familiar. When she hesitated, he added softly, "Please?" She moved to sit beside him, conscious of how natural it felt now. This closeness that should have been inappropriate but somehow wasn't. The papers trembled slightly in her hands. "Show me," he said quietly. "Tristan. I'm not made of glass, Elara, and I'm tired of people protecting me from my own medical reality." His fingers brushed hers as he took the reports. "I built a tech empire by facing hard data head-on. This is no different." But it was different, and they both knew it. This wasn't a quarterly earnings report or a market analysis. This was his life, measured in stark numbers and declining metrics. He read in silence for several minutes, his expression unreadable. Finally, he spoke. 6 months? With standard treatment, she confirmed softly. But Dr. Kavanagh's protocol could extend it, I know. He set the papers aside and turned to face her fully. But that's not guaranteed. Nothing in medicine is guaranteed. Ilara's voice caught. But we have to try. Why? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning. Ilara knew he wasn't just asking about the treatment. "Because She broke off, struggling to find the right words. "Ms. Foster?" A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Dr. Kavanagh's office is calling. Something about his flight being delayed due to weather?" Ilara jumped up, professional mode snapping back into place. "I'll take it at the nurse's station." But as she reached the door, Tristan called after her. "This conversation isn't over." She met his eyes briefly, saw the same mix of fear and hope and something deeper that she felt in her own heart, then hurried out. The call with Dr. Kavanagh's office was frustrating. Bad weather in Boston had delayed all flights. He wouldn't arrive until morning now. Ilara hung up and leaned against the wall, closing her eyes. "You look like you could use this." Clara appeared beside her, holding out a cup of her favorite hibiscus tea. "Rough news?" "Kavanagh's delayed. Won't be here until morning." Ilara accepted the tea gratefully. "Every hour counts, Clara. The disease progression." "I know, honey." Clara's expression was sympathetic. "But that's not all that's eating at you, is it?" Ilara stared into her tea, watching the deep red liquid swirl. "I'm falling in love with him," she whispered, admitting it aloud for the first time. "Tell me something I don't know." Clara's smile was gentle. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "What can I do? He's my patient. He's terminally ill. It's completely inappropriate and probably impossible, and none of that changes how you feel." Clara squeezed her arm. "Sometimes the heart knows better than the head." Before Ilara could respond, another nurse rushed up. "Ms. Foster? Mr. Merrick's asking for you. His pain levels are rising." Ilara was moving before the nurse finished speaking, her heart racing. She found Tristan sitting up in bed, his face tight with discomfort. "Where?" she asked, already reaching for his hand. "Lower back, spreading to my sides." His fingers gripped hers. "It's happening faster now, isn't it?" "I'll get the doctor." "No." His grip tightened. "Just stay. Please. Talk to me. Like you did when I was in the coma." So she sat beside him, holding his hand, and began to speak softly about anything and everything. Her childhood in Portland, her mother's love of cooking, her dreams of opening a holistic nutrition center. Gradually, she felt his muscles relax, his breathing ease. "Your voice still anchors me," he murmured after a while, "even now." "I wanted so badly to reach you," she admitted. "All those weeks talking to you, hoping you could hear me." "I did. Not the words, always, but the feeling behind them." His thumb traced patterns on her palm. "You made me feel human. Again, not just a CEO or a medical case. You still do." Their eyes met in the dim evening light, and something shifted in the air between them. Tristan raised his free hand to brush a strand of hair from her face, his touch feather-light. "Ilara," he said softly, "if these are my last months, don't." She pressed her fingers to his lips, stopping the words. "We're going to fight this. Dr. Kavanagh's protocol, listen to me." He caught her hand, holding it against his chest where she could feel his heart beating. If these are my last months, I don't want to spend them pretending I'm not falling in love with you. The world seemed to stop. Ilara's heart thundered in her chest as she stared into his eyes, seeing all her own complicated feelings reflected back at her. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Probably." His smile was gentle. "So was hearing your voice in the darkness. So was finding someone who sees the real me. So was waking up to find that the angel who'd been caring for me was even more beautiful than I'd imagined. Tristan." Tears pricked at her eyes. "I know all the reasons this is complicated. I know the professional ethics involved. I know my condition makes any future uncertain." His voice was soft but intense. "But I also know that when you're here, the pain is more bearable. The fear is less overwhelming. The world makes sense again." A tear slipped down Ilara's cheek. Tristan brushed it away with his thumb, his touch impossibly tender. "You don't have to say anything," he continued. "Just don't pull away. Whatever time I have left, I want to spend it being honest about what you mean to me." In response, Ilara did something either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. She leaned forward and pressed her lips to his, soft and sweet and full of everything she couldn't say. When she pulled back, Tristan's eyes were shining with emotion. "Well," he whispered, "that's certainly an answer." They shared a shaky laugh, both overwhelmed by the moment and its implications. Then Ilara's phone buzzed, another update about Dr. Kavanagh's travel plans. "Go," Tristan said softly. "Do what you need to do. I'll be here." She squeezed his hand once more before standing. At the door, she turned back. "Tristan? I'm falling in love with you, too." His smile lit up the darkening room, chasing away shadows both real and metaphorical. As Ilara walked down the hallway to deal with the logistics of tomorrow's consultation, her lips still tingling from their kiss, she felt somehow both lighter and heavier. Lighter with the truth finally spoken, heavier with the responsibility of what came next. But for the first time since discovering his condition, hope felt stronger than fear. Together they might just be able to face whatever tomorrow brought, as long as they faced it together. The early morning light had barely begun to filter through Seattle's cloud cover when Dr. James Kavanagh strode into room 742, his presence immediately commanding attention. Tall and distinguished, with silver hair and keen eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone used to dealing with impossible cases. Ilara stood beside Tristan's bed, fighting the urge to hold his hand as she had all night. After their confession, after that kiss, maintaining professional distance felt like trying to hold back the tide. But with Dr. Kavanagh here, they needed to focus on the medical challenge ahead. "Mr. Merrick," Kavanagh said, extending his hand, "I've reviewed your case extensively. Shall we discuss your options?" Tristan shook the doctor's hand firmly. "Please. And thank you for coming on such short notice. Thank Ms. Foster. Her research and observations were instrumental in identifying the unique characteristics of your case." Kavanagh began setting up his laptop. "Speaking of which, Ms. Foster, I'd like you to stay. Your nutritional protocol will be crucial to what I'm proposing." Ilara caught the flash of relief in Tristan's eyes, matching her own. They hadn't discussed how to handle their changed relationship with the specialist. For the next hour, Kavanagh outlined his treatment plan. The protocol was aggressive, combining specialized molecular therapy with carefully targeted nutrition and lifestyle modifications. The potential side effects were significant, but so were the possible benefits. "Best case scenario?" Tristan asked, his voice steady. "Complete remission is possible. I've seen it in 2 cases." Kavanagh adjusted his glasses. "However, I must be clear. The success rate is roughly 30%. Another 40% sees significant life extension, perhaps several years. The remaining 30%" he paused diplomatically. "Show no improvement," Tristan finished. "Or worse." "Correct. And given the advanced progression in your case, the risks are higher than average." Ilara's hands trembled as she took notes in her blue notebook. Tristan noticed, and despite their audience, reached over to steady them with his own. "When can we start?" he asked. Kavanaugh raised an eyebrow at their joined hands but didn't comment. "The first phase of treatment can begin today. I've already arranged for the necessary medications to be delivered. Miss Foster, I'll need you to implement the nutritional protocol immediately." "Of course," she said, trying to keep her voice professional despite Tristan's thumb tracing small circles on her palm. "Good. Now there's the matter of ongoing care. This treatment requires constant monitoring. I'd recommend transferring to our facility in Boston." "No." Tristan's response was immediate. "I'm staying here. Mr. Merrick, the level of expertise required can be provided here," Ilara interrupted. "I've studied your protocols extensively. With your guidance and the hospital's resources, we can maintain the same standard of care." Kavanaugh studied them both for a long moment, understanding dawning in his eyes. "I see," he said finally. "Well, it's unorthodox, but—" He smiled slightly. "This whole case has been unorthodox from the start." "Very well. I'll arrange to have my monitoring equipment sent here and I'll consult remotely daily." After Kavanaugh left to coordinate with the hospital staff, Ilara and Tristan looked at each other, the weight of the decision hanging between them. 30%, she whispered. "Better odds than most of my successful business ventures." He tugged her closer, no longer caring who might see. "Especially with you in my corner." "Tristan." She perched on the edge of his bed, their familiar position now charged with new meaning. "Are you sure about staying here? The Boston facility?" "Would mean leaving you." His blue eyes held hers intently. "And that's not an option. This isn't about me." "Isn't it?" His hand cupped her cheek. "You're the reason I'm fighting so hard. The reason I want more time." The door opened before she could respond, and Clara bounced in, her curls particularly vibrant against today's rainbow-themed scrubs. "Hope I'm not interrupting something," she said with a knowing grin. "But we need to prep for the first treatment round." The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of activity. New equipment arrived, medications were prepared, and Ilara worked with the kitchen to implement the specialized nutritional protocol. Through it all, she was acutely aware of Tristan, watching her whenever she was in his room, his gaze a tangible warmth on her skin. As evening approached, the first phase of treatment was complete. Tristan dozed fitfully, his body already showing signs of stress from the aggressive therapy. Ilara sat beside him, monitoring his vital signs while updating her notes. "You should rest," Clara said softly, bringing her a fresh cup of tea. "I can watch him. I need to document everything properly." Ilara rubbed her tired eyes. Dr. Kavanaugh wants detailed reports on his response to the initial treatment. "Girl, you need to take care of yourself too." Clara's expression grew serious. "Loving someone who's sick, it can consume you if you let it." "I'm not—" Ilara stopped at Clara's knowing look. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to anyone with eyes." Clara squeezed her shoulder. "And for what it's worth, I think you're good for each other. Just remember to breathe sometimes, okay?" After Clara left, Ilara found herself studying Tristan's sleeping face. Even unconscious pain lined his features, and the mark of Hawthorne's disease had spread further across his skin. But there was strength there too, in the set of his jaw, the furrow of his brow as he fought against the disease ravaging his body. "Hey," he murmured suddenly, his eyes fluttering open. "You're thinking too loud. Sorry." She smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "How's the pain?" "Manageable." He caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. "Having you here helps." "Tristan," she glanced at the door. "Someone could see." "Let them." His voice was rough, with emotion. "I'm done hiding things that matter. My condition, my feelings for you. I want it all in the open. The hospital ethics board might have something to say about that. Then I'll become an outpatient, or hire you privately, or buy the whole damn hospital. He managed a weak smile. I'm still a billionaire, you know. Stop. But she was smiling too, even as tears threatened. Just focus on getting better. Dance with me. What? She stared at him. You can barely stand. Then help me. His eyes held that intensity she was coming to know so well. Please? Just for a moment. She should have said no. He was fresh off his first treatment, weak and in pain. But something in his expression made her stand and help him to his feet instead. They swayed together beside his bed, his arms around her waist, her head tucked under his chin. His heart monitor beeped steadily, creating an odd sort of rhythm for their impromptu dance. I used to think I had everything figured out, he murmured into her hair. The company, my life. Then I got sick, and nothing made sense anymore. Until you walked into my room and started talking about blueberry smoothies and jazz. Ilara pressed closer, breathing in his scent. I used to think I had my path set too. Help people, keep my distance, never risk my heart again after what happened with my mother. She looked up at him. Then you had to go and change everything. No regrets? Ask me again when you're in remission. He laughed softly, then winced. Ilara quickly helped him back to bed, her touch gentle but sure. As she adjusted his monitors and checked his vital signs, he caught her hand again. Stay tonight? He asked quietly. Just be here? She should have said no to that too. But instead she found herself settling into her chair, their fingers intertwined, her heart full of equal parts fear and hope. Always, she whispered, and watched him drift off to sleep, praying that love would be enough to see them through whatever came next. Because sometimes she was learning. The biggest risks brought the greatest rewards, and sometimes the heart knew better than all the medical textbooks in the world. 3 weeks into Dr. Kavanaugh's treatment protocol, and Seattle's eternal rain matched the tension in room 742. Ilara stared at the latest test results, her heart sinking. Despite their best efforts, despite the aggressive treatment, despite everything, the disease was still progressing. How bad? Tristan asked from his bed. He'd lost weight, his designer hospital clothes now hanging loose on his frame, but his blue eyes remained sharp and focused on her face. The markers are still rising. She tried to keep her voice steady. And the molecular therapy isn't showing the response we hoped for. Tristan nodded slowly, processing. What does Kavanaugh say? He wants to adjust the protocol again, increase the dosage, modify the timing. She moved to sit beside him, their hands finding each other automatically now. But the side effects will be worse. He squeezed her fingers. I can handle it. Can you? She finally let her professional mask crack. You're getting weaker, Tristan. The pain episodes are more frequent. Yesterday, you could barely keep anything down. Hey, he tugged her closer. Look at me. She met his eyes reluctantly, seeing in them the same mix of love and fear that had been growing in her own heart over these weeks. I'm not giving up, he said firmly. We knew this would be hard, but I have something worth fighting for now. Before she could respond, Clara burst into the room, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by urgent concern. Dr. Kavanaugh's on the video call. He says it's important. The specialist's face on the screen looked grave as he outlined his concerns. The current treatment wasn't working fast enough. They needed to try something more experimental, more aggressive. The risk factors are significant, Kavanaugh warned. But given the progression rate, we're running out of options. What exactly are you proposing? Ilara asked, her grip on Tristan's hand tightening. A modified version of the molecular therapy, combined with targeted radiation. It's shown promising results in similar cases, but he hesitated. The stress on the body is extreme, given Mr. Merrick's weakened state. What are the odds? Tristan's voice was calm, businesslike. 50-50. Either it works dramatically or... Kavanaugh didn't finish the sentence. After, the call ended. Silence filled the room. Ilara's mind raced with calculations, research papers she'd read, alternative treatments they hadn't tried. "I'm doing it," Tristan said quietly. "No." The word burst from her before she could stop it. "It's too risky. We can try adjusting the current protocol, or explore other options." "Ilara." He pulled her down to sit beside him. "We both know I'm getting worse. This might be my only shot. You could die. I'm dying anyway." His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. "At least this way I'm fighting." A knock at the door interrupted them. Clara entered with Tristan's evening medications, her expression softening at their obvious distress. "Everything okay?" "We're adjusting the treatment plan," Tristan said diplomatically. Clara wasn't fooled. "How bad?" 50-50 odds, Ilara whispered. Honey." Clara set down the medication tray and hugged her friend. "Want me to cover your rounds tonight, give you two some time?" Ilara shook her head. "I need to prepare the new protocol documents, and his nutrition plan will need complete revision for the new treatment." Always the professional. Tristan's voice held equal parts admiration and frustration. Even now. After Clara left, Ilara busied herself with checking Tristan's vital signs, needing the familiar routine to steady her hands. His skin was warm under her fingers as she measured his pulse. The mark of Hawthorne's disease now spread across his chest like a dark map of everything they stood to lose. "Dance with me," he said suddenly. "What now?" She gestured at his monitors. "You need to rest and I have to. Please." He was already trying to stand. One dance before everything changes. She should have refused, should have insisted he save his strength. Instead, she found herself helping him up, supporting his weight as they swayed together in the dim evening light. "Remember our first dance?" he murmured against her hair. 3 weeks ago, right after your first treatment, when you could barely stand? Worth every second of pain." His arms tightened around her. "Just like this is." "Tristan." Her voice broke. "I can't lose you. Then help me fight." He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. "Be my strength when I'm weak, my hope when I'm scared, my light in the darkness, just like you were during the coma." "That's not fair." "No, it's not." He managed a weak smile. "Neither is falling in love with my nutritionist while dying of a rare disease. But here we are." A sharp pain spasm hit him then, making him stumble. Ilara quickly helped him back to bed, her movements gentle but efficient as she adjusted his medication drip. "The new treatment starts tomorrow," she said softly, once he'd caught his breath. "Promise me something? Anything. Promise you won't give up no matter how hard it gets." She pressed her forehead to his. "Promise you'll keep fighting. Only if you promise something too." His hand tangled in her hair. "Promise you won't blame yourself if..." "Don't. Ilara, please. I need to know you'll be okay, whatever happens." She wanted to argue, to insist nothing would happen, that they would beat this together. Instead, she kissed him, soft and deep and full of everything she couldn't say. When they parted, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I love you," he whispered. "Whatever time I have left, whether it's days or years, that won't change." "I love you too." The words came easily now, despite all the complications they brought. "So much it terrifies me." They held each other as the night deepened, neither wanting to sleep, to waste a moment of their uncertain time together. Ilara documented his vital signs religiously while trying to memorize every detail of his face, every sound of his voice, every touch of his hand against hers. Around midnight, Clara came to check on them. She took one look at their intertwined fingers, their tear-stained faces, and quietly adjusted Tristan's pain medication without comment. "The new treatment supplies arrived," she said softly. "Everything's ready for tomorrow." Tomorrow. The word hung heavy in the air, full of both promise and threat. Get some rest, Clara advised, squeezing Alara's shoulder as she left. Both of you. But rest seemed impossible. Instead, they talked through the night, about their hopes, their fears, their dreams of a future that might never come. Tristan spoke of places he wanted to take her, things he wanted to show her. Alara shared her visions of the clinic they could build together, combining his business acumen with her holistic approach. As dawn approached, painting Seattle's skyline, in shades of gray and gold, they finally fell into an exhausted sleep, still holding hands across the space between bed and chair, their last moment of peace before the storm. Tomorrow would bring its challenges, pain and fear and desperate hopes. But for now, in the quiet hours before morning, they had this: two hearts beating in sync, two souls intertwined, and love strong enough to face whatever came next. Even if next meant goodbye. The monitors screamed in room 742 as Tristan's body convulsed, reacting violently to the experimental treatment. 2 weeks had passed since they'd started the aggressive new protocol, and each day had brought fresh battles. Blood pressure dropping, Clara called out, her usual cheerful demeanor replaced by fierce concentration. We need to stabilize him. Alara stood frozen by the door, her blue notebook clutched to her chest, watching as the medical team worked. Dr. Kavanaugh had flown in from Boston yesterday, when Tristan's readings began to deteriorate, and now he led the emergency response. Push another round of stabilizers, Kavanaugh ordered, and get me his latest metabolic panel. Time seemed to stretch and blur. Alara could only watch as they fought to save the man she loved, her medical training, warring with her heart's desperate need to rush to his side. Finally, after what felt like hours, the monitors steadied. The room cleared except for Kavanaugh, who studied the readings with intense focus. His system is overwhelmed, the specialist said quietly. The treatment is working. The disease markers are down significantly, but his body can't handle the stress much longer. So we stop, Alara said, moving to Tristan's bedside. His face was pale, dark circles shadowing his eyes, but his breathing had steadied. If we stop now, the disease will rebound aggressively. We'll lose all progress. Kavanaugh removed his glasses, rubbing his tired eyes. But if we continue at this intensity... He didn't need to finish the sentence. They both knew what he meant. There has to be another way, Alara insisted, reaching for Tristan's hand. His skin felt cool against hers. There might be. Kavanaugh pulled up some data on his tablet. Look at these readings. When you're with him, his vitals stabilize. His body responds better to the treatment. It's subtle, but the pattern is clear. What are you suggesting? Something unorthodox. He studied her carefully. Would you be willing to take a leave of absence from your regular duties? Focus solely on his care? Of course, but I'm not just talking about medical care. Kavanaugh's expression softened. The connection between you two, it's becoming a crucial factor in his recovery. His body fights harder when you're here. His spirit is stronger. Before Alara could respond, Tristan stirred. His blue eyes fluttered open, immediately seeking her face. Hey, she whispered, squeezing his hand. You're crying, he observed weakly. Just allergies. She managed a watery smile. How do you feel? Like I got hit by that sports car again. He tried to smile back, but pain tightened his features. Did it work? Kavanaugh stepped forward. The treatment is showing positive results. Your disease markers are down 30%. But? Tristan's gaze was sharp despite his weakness. But continuing at this intensity could kill you before the disease does. The specialist was direct. We need to modify our approach. Over the next hour, they discussed the new plan. Lower doses of the treatment spread out over a longer period. Intensive supportive care. And Alara, by his side constantly, monitoring every reaction, every change. It will take longer, Kavanaugh warned, and there are no guarantees. There never are. Tristan's voice was tired but determined. But I've got something worth fighting for. After Kavanaugh left to adjust the treatment protocols, Clara brought in fresh supplies. Her bright scrubs, today featuring dancing sunflowers, seemed to lift the heavy atmosphere slightly. "Your company's board called again," she told Tristan. "Bradford's been making noise about your extended absence." "Let him." Tristan's grip on Alara's hand tightened. "The company can run itself for a while longer." "Actually," Alara hesitated, "maybe it's time to make some changes there too." "What do you mean?" "You once mentioned wanting to do more with Merrick Tech's resources. What if—" She pulled out her notebook, flipping to some recent sketches. "What if we combined our dreams? Your business expertise, my healthcare vision?" Despite his exhaustion, Tristan's eyes lit up as she outlined her idea. A network of holistic wellness centers, backed by Merrick Tech's resources and technology. Places where people could receive both cutting-edge medical care and the kind of personal attention that had helped him fight back from the brink. "It's ambitious," he said when she finished. "Says the man who built a tech empire before 35. True." He smiled, then winced as another wave of pain hit. "But first, I have to survive this." "You will." She pressed her forehead to his. "We've come too far to give up now." Days turned into weeks as they implemented the modified treatment plan. Alara took her leave of absence, practically moving into Tristan's room. She monitored his responses, obsessively, adjusting his care minute by minute based on his body's reactions. The disease markers continued to drop, more slowly now, but steadily. Each small victory was celebrated: a pain-free hour, a full meal kept down, a short walk around the room without assistance. 1 month into the new protocol, Dr. Kavanaugh arrived for his weekly checkup with unprecedented excitement in his usually calm demeanor. "The latest results." He spread the papers across Tristan's bed. "Look at the disease progression markers." Alara gasped as she studied the numbers. "They're reversing?" "More than that." Kavanaugh pointed to several key indicators. "The molecular therapy is actually working now that his body's not fighting it so hard. The diseased cells are being replaced by healthy ones at an increasing rate." "Meaning?" Tristan asked, though his tightened grip on Alara's hand suggested he already knew. "Meaning we're seeing the beginning stages of what could be full remission." Kavanaugh smiled. "It's not a guarantee yet, but it's hope," Alara finished, tears spilling down her cheeks. After the specialist left, they held each other in silence, both processing the magnitude of what they'd just learned. Outside, Seattle's perpetual rain had finally ceased, leaving the sky clear and bright. "Marry me," Tristan said suddenly. Alara pulled back to stare at him. "What?" "Marry me." His blue eyes were intense, fully alive. "I know it's fast, I know we still have battles ahead, but I don't want to waste any more time pretending this isn't exactly what I want, what I've wanted since I first heard your voice in the darkness." "You're still my patient," she protested weakly. "Not for much longer." He caught her face between his hands. "Alara Foster, you saved my life in more ways than one. You saw me when I was invisible, fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself, loved me when I thought I was unlovable. Marry me. Help me build something meaningful with whatever time we have, and whether it's months or years or decades." She looked at him. Really looked at him. The mark of Hawthorne's disease was fading from his skin, replaced by healthy color. His eyes were bright with hope and love and possibilities. Despite everything they'd been through, or maybe because of it, she had never seen anything more beautiful. "Yes," she whispered, then laughed through her tears. "Yes, of course, yes." Their kiss was sweet and deep and full of promises. When they parted, Clara was standing in the doorway, pretending to wipe her eyes on her colorful scrubs. "About time," she said with a watery smile. "Now can I plan the wedding, because I have some ideas?" Alara and Tristan laughed together, the sound of their joy filling the room that had seen so much pain and fear and hope. Later that evening, as sunset painted Seattle's skyline in shades of gold and promise, they swayed together beside his bed, no longer needing to support his weight, just wanting to be close. "What are you thinking?" he murmured into her hair. "That sometimes the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards." She looked up at him, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne, no longer from his sheets, but from his skin. "And that love really can heal what medicine alone can't touch." "Even in silence," he agreed softly. "Especially then." Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Inside room 742, two hearts beat in sync, two souls remained intertwined, and love continued to work its quiet miracles. It wasn't the end of their story. There would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight, more dreams to build. But it was the end of silence, of separation, of fear. And it was, in every way that mattered, just the beginning. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Merrick Tech Wellness Center in downtown Seattle, illuminating the ER, state-of-the-art facility that seamlessly blended holistic care with cutting-edge technology. In her office, Ilara Merrick reviewed patient files while absently touching the simple platinum band on her left hand, a habit she'd developed over the past 6 months of marriage. A light knock on her door made her look up. Tristan stood, in the doorway, healthy and strong, his blue eyes bright with their usual intensity. No trace remained of the Hawthorne's disease that had nearly claimed his life a year ago. "Ready for the board meeting?" he asked, crossing the room to drop a kiss on her forehead. "Almost." She gestured to the files spread across her desk. "The results from our first quarter are incredible. The integrated care approach is showing better outcomes than even Dr. Kavanagh predicted." Speaking of Kavanagh, Tristan perched on the edge of her desk, something he'd done countless times during his recovery in room 742. "He's agreed to head our research division. We'll be able to help more people with rare conditions develop new treatment protocols." Ilara stood, moving into his arms automatically. "Remember when this was just sketches in my blue notebook?" "I remember everything." His hands settled on her waist. "Every word you spoke to me in the darkness. Every touch that brought me back to light. Every dream we built together." "Mr. Merrick," she teased, "are you getting sentimental on me?" "Always." He kissed her softly. "Especially today." "Today?" "1 year ago exactly, you walked into room 742 and changed my life." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small blue velvet box. "Happy anniversary." Inside was a delicate gold charm for her bracelet, a tiny replica of her old notebook. The inscription read, "Even in silence, love speaks loudest." "Clara helped me design it," he admitted as Ilara blinked back tears. As if summoned by her name, Clara's voice rang out from the doorway. "There you two are. The board's waiting, and I've got patients lined up for our new wellness program." They turned to see their friend, now the center's head of patient care, resplendent in her signature colorful scrubs. She'd been instrumental in implementing their vision of personalized, holistic healthcare. "And Ilara," Clara added with a knowing smile, "don't forget your appointment with Dr. Bennett this afternoon." Tristan's eyes widened. "Is that today? The 3-month scan?" Ilara nodded, her hand drifting to her still flat stomach. Another dream taking shape, another journey beginning. "Life's full of surprises," she said softly. "Sometimes the best ones come after the hardest battles." As they walked to the board meeting hand in hand through the facility they'd built together, Ilara thought about all the paths that had led them here. The pain, the fear, the hope, the healing, all of it necessary steps in their dance. And in the end, love had spoken loudest of all, even in silence. The end, based on the emotional depth and themes of Even in Silence, here is an impactful question. If you found yourself in Ilara's situation, falling deeply in love with someone who is facing a terminal illness, would you choose to protect your heart and keep your professional distance, or would you risk everything to fight for this love, knowing the pain you might face? What would you do if love and professional ethics collided in such a profound way? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you very much for watching to the end. If you like the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share your opinion in the comments. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.